Hi, this is Kerry with Filmmaker Central, and today I've got a very cool product to show you, the MIOPS Smart Remote Plus. So stay right there. We'll be right back. Hey there, folks. Today we're taking a look at the MIOPS Smart Remote Plus. And this is a camera trigger that plugs into your camera to trigger the shutter. Now, while this isn't necessarily primarily a filmmaker's tool, it can be used for things like time-lapse. And that, to me, is filmmaking, right? Because I do a lot of time-lapse type stuff. And I'm using the Sony a7 III. And when I got it, I had to buy an external intervalometer, and they're kind of cryptic and not the most intuitive things to use. But recently, Sony did a firmware update that added an intervalometer to the camera. And that's all well and good, and it works fine. I do have a couple issues with it in terms of it's just a little clunky to get set up and running, and when you're in a hurry, it's just not the easiest thing to get dialed in. So where the MIOPS Remote Plus comes in is it sits on your camera, plugs in, and we can just go, I'm gonna turn it on here so we can, I'll show you kind of the interface here. We just turn it on. And I'll run the MIOPS mobile, and there it's connected. So now I'm in the MIOPS mobile. I have cable release modes. I can just trigger a camera release. I can press and hold it and release when it's time to, take my finger off the trigger, or I can press and lock and then press it again to unlock. Timed releases, self-timers, timed release and self-timers. And then there's time-lapse modes, basic time-lapse, long exposure time-lapse, and bulb ramping time-lapse. Now a basic time-lapse, I'm just going to set how many shots do I want to take. And I'm going to set the exposure in the camera and just go. So I can say run for so many frames at 2 seconds a piece, and it's just going to take the pictures. Long exposure is designed for long exposure shots that the camera can't typically do. And what I mean by that is very long exposures. If you're doing a time lapse that is 20-second, 30-second exposures, not all cameras can do that, or even longer exposures. So long exposure time lapse, you'll set the camera in bulb mode and let the MIOPS trigger open and close the shutter. Bulb ramping mode is kind of a very cool one in that I set everything up for the beginning exposure with how long I want the shutter to be open and how long I want the shutter to be open at the end. So maybe in a sunrise, I want it longer at the beginning and shorter at the end as the sun comes up, or vice versa during a sunset. So I can kind of have this exposure ramp during the course of the shot. So here's an example of just a basic time lapse I did. Set the camera up, and just a few seconds I'm taking pictures versus digging through the menus and kind of trying to figure out where everything is again, even though I've moved that to one of my menus, and to make it easier to at least get to, it's still kind of tedious to get set up where I can do it really fast. So here I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go to basic time lapse. I'm going to set my interval. How long do I want the shots to be apart? I'll just go 2 seconds, and I can say how many frames do I want. I want 350 frames. Boom. Press here to take 350 photos with a 2-second interval, and I tap it, and it just starts going. And you can see the MIOPS light up every time it takes a shot. I've got the camera off, so it's not sitting here going click, 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 click. But you can see this is how it works. It's pretty simple. And if I wanted to stop it at some point, I click on the padlock, and then I can just say stop. So basic time lapse is very, very simple, very, very fast and easy to get set up when you're in a hurry. Now some of the other modes that I'm going to play with, not necessarily for video, but for stills. That's going to be a lightning trigger, a sound trigger, and a laser trigger. Now with the lightning trigger, it should go off if it sees lightning. And looking at the gallery at MIOPS' website and some stuff I found online, it looks like it's going to work. And we're at the tail end of the thunder and lightning season here in Colorado. So I'm hoping to get out in the next couple days and grab some lightning shots and see what I can get with it. I'm hoping that it does its job. With sound, if it hears a sound, and you can set the sensitivity of all of these, if it hears a sound, you can fire the trigger. And you can set an offset. So how much of a delay from that sound to the shutter going off do you want it to be? This can be used for things like breaking glass, popping balloons, all kinds of interesting things you can do with the sound trigger. And then there's the laser trigger. So if you have just a basic laser pointer pointed at the light meter here on the front, then anytime something breaks that beam, then the trigger will go off. Now, of course, you don't have to have it on the camera. It's got a coiled cable, so you can move this around and put it, in a more appropriate position for catching that laser beam. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a pretty cool device. It's something that I've wanted for quite a while, and to be honest, MIOPS did send this for review, so this is still an unbiased review. They're not paying me to do this. They just loaned me the equipment so I could try it out and see what I thought of it. There's several different versions of the MIOPS triggers. There's one that simply uses your cell phone and connects to your camera using just what they call the MIOPS dongle. Problem there is you have to have the app running and on top. So you have to have it open. You can't switch over to something else. You can't go take a break. Your camera's running the whole time and your battery's draining because the screen's on and all that. The RemotePlus takes those same functions and allows you to program them with your phone. It then sends the data to the trigger, and at that point, you can turn your phone off. It's not going to matter. You can play a game, you can sit back and do whatever while it's doing its thing because that program is now stored on the MIOPS trigger. So that's really handy when you're out in the cold or something and you just want to set it up and then go off and do your thing. What's really nice is as soon as I run the app again, it reconnects and takes me right to the current status. So when I was out doing that time-lapse shot, as soon as I set it up, I started running, I went off, I started checking my emails, checked Facebook, took a couple pictures, did a few other things. I'd reconnect, I'm like, all right, it's at 180 shots, go back, do something else, play around, and I'd keep checking in. It got to 354 shots, and I'm like, okay, that's good enough. I'll go ahead and stop it. So super nice that you don't have to stay connected. You don't have to keep the app running. And at any time you can reconnect, see the status, and decide if you want to stop it or just let it keep on running. So for that remote ability to just program and go, I really, really like how this system works. Now, how is it going to work out in the real world? That's a whole nother thing. That we need to go out and do some testing. So like I said, hopefully over the next few days, we have some lightning storms predicted. I'm going to go out and try and get some cool lightning shots with it. We tested this in our office with just a speed light set on the absolutely lowest power, aimed right at, just a couple inches off the floor while this was up on a desk, and it would trigger it every single time. So I'm very confident that it's actually going to get some shots. Now, will it capture every single one? We don't know. Will it capture lightning at a distance? We don't know. But hopefully we're going to get some really cool results. And if so, I'm going to turn into a very big fan because I really like cool lightning shots. So let's get out, have some fun with this thing, and see what it can do. Well, I just got back from doing some testing with the MIOPS RemotePlus, and gotta say, there's definitely a learning curve to some things. Not everything, just some things. Time-lapse mode, super simple to deal with, not a big deal. Lightning mode, we had a great lightning storm tonight. I'll show you a picture here. Very happy with the results. And my issues I had were not really to do with the smart remote. It was more about how to get good lightning shots, which I had it cranked out to, you know, the farthest distance because the lightning was way off in the distance and everything is just blurry. The pictures just don't look that good. When I focused on stuff that was really close in the foreground, then the lightning actually was very sharp and it looked really good. And so here's a shot where I did that. I was focusing more on the buildings that were right there with me than I was on trying to get sharp focus on the lightning, and the stuff turned out much better. In terms of its effectiveness in catching the lightning, and that, again, and I don't know if this is all user error or if it's more about how the system works. And what I found was the darker it got, the better it worked. And now, not because it was triggering the camera better, but before it was really darker out, there was great lightning bolts, but nothing was showing up on the camera. It was as if the camera was taking the picture just way too late. And there's no way to adjust that. It is what it is. You get what you get with it. But as the ambient light got less, it seemed to be more accurate on it. And it started nailing shot after shot after shot after shot. And lightning strikes were going off like every few seconds. So it was just tick, 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 tick. And I'll show you a video here of just how fast it was taking the shots. It was pretty crazy. So tips on shooting lightning is maybe you'll get good results during the day, but you may not. You may have much better results taking lightning shots as the ambient light is much less, or maybe if you, I don't think it's cranking down the ISO because it's not the camera, it's the sensor is just not triggering the camera fast enough until the ambient light is much less. So there's that. But once the light hit kind of this sweet spot, it was just like click, 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 click every time the lightning was going off, and I started getting more and more and more keepers. So there is kind of a sweet spot in terms of its detection and firing mechanism. With sound, I'm still playing around with trying to get good sound detection. And again, I think the problem is a delay. It can't hear it and trigger the camera fast enough. So some things are going to work really well where the shot needs to be a few milliseconds after the sound goes off. If you need it to be like right on that sound, it's not going to happen. If the camera can trigger just milliseconds, 20, 30 milliseconds after the sound, you're going to have better results. Now, somewhere around here, I have a laser pointer, and I'm going to try that. Haven't been able to find it. I don't know where it is at the moment, but I'll find it, and I'll try and do some test results with that as well. But what do I think of the MIOPS system? I think it's really, really cool. I think it can definitely improve your efficiency and productivity in certain things. Doing time-lapse, it is super fast to get your time-lapse shots up and running. Get your exposure on your camera, a couple taps on your phone, and it's taking pictures. There's no way I can do that as fast using the intervalometer that's built into the A7 III. If you, like, man, I want to get something right now, the MIOPS time-lapse settings are awesome. Now, I haven't had a chance to play with the time-lapse ramping because I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet. How do I know what shutter speed to set it at for 30 minutes down the road? I haven't quite got that dialed in yet. So there's, again, some learning curve in terms of that particular feature. Motion, you can set your phone to, if it detects any motion, you know, any movement shaking, then it can trigger it. You can also set your phone up, and if the camera senses any motion, it can take a picture. What else? You can also use the microphone on your smartphone to trigger the sound on there. I'm guessing that's not going to be as good as using the onboard one, because now you have the phone processing it and sending it over there. So I haven't really bothered. I don't think I'm going to bother with that one. Let's see, what are some of the other features we have here? Vibration, motion, sound, road lapse. Road lapse allows you to set up your camera in your car, and then well, let's go into the setting here and I'll tell you exactly what you can set. It uses your GPS, and you can set, well, I'm not really sure. I can set any number, like 2, 250, 1, but I don't really know what that is. And how many frames to take. So I'll have to read the manual on what is distance. If it's miles, that's not going to be a very great road lapse. So I'll have to look into that one. Long exposure, time lapse, bulb, timers. I mean, a lot of the stuff my camera can do, but you know, sometimes it's just easier doing it in here. HDR time lapse is kind of cool. You can set, up to 15 shots, I believe. You can set a lot of shots up, and down to 1/15 of a stop difference, all the way up to 15 EV values. EV values 1 or 2 stops at a time, 3, 5, or 7 frames. So you have a lot of configuration over your HDR images there. Again, you're going to set your camera in bulb mode, and the app will calculate how long the shutter is going to be open. So that's kind of cool. And just regular HDR mode, what your center point is, your EV values, 1/3, half, 1 or 2 stops, and 3, 5, or 7 frames. So quite a bit of features built into here. Most everything is for photography. The only filmography feature is the time lapse, which I think is very cool, and I use a lot of time lapse, and I sell stock footage with time lapse. So it is relevant to setting up this system for videographers if you're into doing time lapse. So check it out. It runs about $150, and to me, this has always been one of those things that I always thought, you know, it'd be nice to have, but for $150 I can go buy something else. But then you have a lightning storm like tonight, and you're like, man, I wish I could run over to some store and buy one of those right now, because I would certainly use it. So now that I have one, I'm definitely going to use it more and more often. And it's so small. I mean, it's definitely smaller than I expected. I don't have anything for comparison, but you can see it on top of the camera here, and I'll do some close-ups so you can see just how small it is on top of the camera. Very inobtrusive on there. I could just keep this thing on there all the time and then only remove it if I needed to put something else in the cold shoe. Simply that it's just always there, and if I need to do a quick time lapse or an HDR or lightning shots or sound triggers or something, it's there. I just have it. So it's going to be worthwhile to just keep it handy so that I'm not digging it out trying to throw something together, because that kind of defeats the purpose of it being a fast, easy system to use. There are 3 different versions. There's just the dongle, which connects your phone directly to it, but again, you have to keep the app running all the time. This one is the Remote Plus, which is pretty simple. It's all app controlled, and you can, you know, like I said, it's nice and tiny. And then there's another one which I think runs around $250, which is bigger, but you can program everything you want it to do without using an app. So, you know, if you don't have your phone handy, your phone's dead, you can use the controls on it to set that all up. So there's 3 different versions to choose from. Would I recommend it? Yeah, if these are the types of things you want to do. If you want to capture, you know, and freeze motion based on a sound trigger or a laser beam getting cut or you want something that can catch the lightning, or you want some of the other features like the motion detection or the HDR features and things, then yeah, it's probably worth it. And I think I would recommend this one, the $150 one, and unless you want that all-in-one unit that you don't need a phone. But I prefer using it. I think it's really easy to use my phone to set this up, and the fact that once it's going, I can walk away. I mean, I set up the lightning mode and I was taking pictures of it, I was taking videos of the lightning, I was doing all kinds of stuff without the app running, and this thing would just sit there, you'd see a flash and you'd hear the camera go off. So I like the fact that it becomes independent of your phone once you hit go. So that's the MIOPS. It's at miops.com. I'll have links in the description and here on the website. So check it out. Be sure and go to filmmakercentral.com. Check out all the articles over there. There's always new news, new things going on over there. Join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/filmmakercentral. We're building a nice little community over there. Come and join us. Participate, share your work, get tips, get ideas. See not only the stuff that I'm putting out and my friend Barry's putting out and Klaus is putting out. They're all putting their all their stuff that they're doing, all their tutorials on there for everyone to share. So thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Kerry with Filmmaker Central. I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.